All right, well, good morning, guys. My name is Travis Phillips, coming to you live from Antioch out here in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. So good to be with you today. We're kind of doing this living room style this time around, but so excited to talk today about team leadership. For us, it's been kind of the backbone of our church, it feels like, in many ways. And so as we share today, I'm mainly wanting to share out of a place of personal experience, not so much from books or things that we'd read, but we've learned so much over the years about leading a team, and so it's a joy for me to get to share some of those experiences. But I'd love to open us up with just a quick word of prayer. So, Father God, we love you. We're so thankful for your presence. We long for your presence. Thank you that you're a God that pursues us day in and day out. That you're a God who is slow to anger, quick to love, who is gracious and compassionate, rich in mercy. And so, Lord, we just ask today that we would experience your presence, and in that we would also just increase in wisdom and skill and insight in the way that we lead others. That's our heart. That's our prayer today. And so God, speak to us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, I want to start with a little bit of our story, since particularly I'm going to be sharing about our story and what we've learned in our journey. I want to give you a little context for that. So we planted out here in Phoenix about 7.5 years ago now. We came out of Antioch in Boston, where I was with my wife for just shy of 10 years. We were on staff out there for 7 of those years, and in different capacities, mainly as a college pastor and in a few other roles along the way. But we came out here about 7.5 years ago. There's a team of 9 of us, and we had the word of fertile soil. And God, where is the fertile soil? We feel like He wanted us to plant in fertile soil. And through a great story that I could share some other time, he clearly spoke Phoenix, Arizona. And so we began the journey out here with 9 of us, and we had the privilege of getting to bring people that we had known for quite some time. I know not everybody has that opportunity, but we had known each of the people on our team for minimum of 6 years. Had done some of their weddings. We had been on mission trips together. Had a lot of history already established, which was greatly beneficial for us in terms of longevity of relationship. And so we came out and we did a launch that was somewhere in between a hard launch and a soft launch. If a hard launch is more of the we're going to try to do a lot of advertising and gathering a lot of people, and we want to have at least 100 people on our first Sunday and rent a hotel ballroom kind of thing. That would be more of a hard launch. A pure soft launch would just be starting a life group or two and just doing life group at the beginning. We did something somewhat in the middle, probably a little more towards soft launch, where we were fortunate enough to rent a home that had a big enough living room to put about 60 chairs in. And so we set it up kind of chairs like church style, and somebody had a little guitar in the corner of the room and a djembe, and but it allowed us to really preach the values rather than to discuss the values, and that's one of the reasons we did that. But then we had that on Sunday evenings from 5 to 6:30, and we'd stick around. People would stick around till 10 o'clock, and we'd have dinner every evening. Somehow we got blessed with a gourmet chef, even though we had like 20 people in our church. But anyway, that helped people stick around. But so in that, we kind of really had those discussions on those values. So it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid that we enjoyed. And so we after 2 or 3 months, we maxed out the house. So started with maybe about 20 people on the first Sunday, kind of grew to 60. And we were at 60 for a while, and we started experiencing this growth. And I want to share with you some of the growth, because where I want to start in how to lead a team is is kind of how to form a team and how to scale a team as you have growth. So I'm going to give you some context for the ways we've experienced growth. And so we had kind of a stair-step growth early on, which we felt like was fantastic. Like in that we would grow, and so it was encouraging, and then it would kind of level off. But in the leveling off, it gave us the chance to disciple, to get DNA in people, and then we'd have another little spurt of growth. We went from like 60 to 90, it felt like, kind of overnight. And then we had, then those people that we've been discipling helped us to get the DNA in the next level of people. Then we kind of went up to 120. And so over a period of time, there was this series of growth. We moved out of the house into a podunk little building, and we were there for a little while, grew maybe to about 140 people through kind of some of the stair-step growth. And when it was really maxed out, we had to move on, which we were not sad about. But we wanted to move in the morning. We weren't able to in that season. The Lord had something else for us. We moved into a church that allowed us to use their facility at night, and we're there for another almost 3 years, and eventually hit a place where there was no growth. So we got to. We were about 140 when we came in there. Got to a place where we were about 280 over the next 3 years, and then we just kind of sat there, and it was a little discouraging, needing breakthrough. God finally brought that. Part of that we knew was going to be because of a move to the morning, as well as a move into a less obscure location that wasn't primarily only drawing students. We were very close to Arizona State University's campus, and so. We moved at that point into the building that we're currently in, that we have 24/7 that we own, and that really allowed us to catapult growth, to become more solidified. And so in the next year we doubled, and now we're around an 800-person church. And so all along the way, I share this because you are scaling and developing team, and there's certainly different. We have a very different feel of what our team is like now, and the functions that they play, and the level of excellence that they have than we did in the beginning. So I want to take you first through that process, and then take us through a little more of the core attributes of a team leader. I'm not going to try to be exhaustive on that, but there's 3 that I want to highlight that I felt like God was giving to us this morning. But before we dive in, first of all, I want to acknowledge, I know everyone listening this morning is not necessarily a team leader or preparing to be a team leader, but I know that you lead people. And so though I'm going to come from the perspective of a team leader of a church plant in a church, I'm believing that there's a lot of things that you're going to be able to pick up along the way as well. Also, I just want to acknowledge any spouses in the room. I'm not going to be talking about the role of the spouse a lot today in the message, but I could tell you that you have a crucial role in the development of team, and for my wife, she's done an incredible job of playing that role, and it actually has expanded not only just her, but our entire family. When we first launched, we had 3 kids. We've doubled that now, but we're done. And then we've brought people into the life of our family. And so particularly early on, when team is a really big deal, and people are buying in, it's a big deal. And I know spouses have different giftings and different callings and things they're doing, but you'll play a significant role in helping to build the chemistry and feel and the warmth and the direction of team. And so I just want to acknowledge that today I'm speaking to you as well in the different roles that you will play. Also, I want to say as we go throughout the session this morning, that you are welcome to send in any questions that you have that come up, and we'd love to try to answer those the best that we can. And if you have a question, I want to give you a number. I think it's going to be sent out to you as well, but I'll just give it to you here. It's 908-642 908-642-7895. So that's 908-642-7895. And if you have a question, you can text it to that number. Please, when you text in, if you could put your name and the city that you're texting in from, that would be great. All right. Well, I want to start with the idea of forming a team. So this is kind of at the very beginning. What does it look like for us to form a team? Now some of you maybe have already done this or are in process of this, but I want to share a few things that were important to us in forming a team. The first thing is this, that they carry the DNA. Now in some ways that's fairly obvious. Okay, they've got to carry the DNA, and it's true. And throughout the message, anything that we're talking about, even as we're talking about scaling a team, that's always at the core. And I'll say this, it's at the core no matter what, but particularly at the beginning is so important because all that you're doing is discipleship and evangelism. I mean, so I still do those things today, but I don't do them in near the quantity of time that I did when we were planting a church. Now there's a lot more of our attention that's equipping and training others to do that, equipping the church to do the work of ministry. But then it's like 90% of my time, that's what I'm out doing because we don't know anybody. So we're just trying to disciple people, share the gospel with people, pray with people. And so in that, you want people that carry the DNA and that are able to transfer the DNA. One of the ways I thought about it is like, I want the church that we're going to plant to look like the people that are on this team. I would love to have a lot of Kristens running around or a lot of Andys running around, or that's what we want. I want who these people are to rub off on the people that we meet, and so that becomes our church. And so obviously it doesn't look exactly like that, but that's the level of DNA that you're looking for, and as well as the ability to transfer that DNA to others. And so people that carry the DNA. Another huge one is chemistry. You're looking for people that you have chemistry with. That doesn't mean they have to be just like you or think just like you. In fact, you want diversity because you're going to be trying to reach a very diverse people, diverse personalities, diverse backgrounds, diverse ways of thinking. And so you don't want uniformity, like you all look the same, but you do want chemistry. And part of that's that you enjoy the people that you're planting with. I mean, at the launch phase of team, you're doing it together. I mean, you're going out every day and you're sharing the gospel and you're meeting as team. I mean, you're doing it together. And so you want to have the highest level of chemistry that you can, that you really enjoy walking with the people that you are you're having on your team. Of course, that doesn't mean it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to mean you're going to have disagreements. But generally speaking, that there's a high level of chemistry. Part of that for us was that God really stirred in me or highlighted in me or maybe gave me just a small warning about was being careful that those that you are inviting to be on your team are fully submitted to your leadership. And so that's not just looking for people, avoiding people that are obviously rebellious or something like that. That's pretty obvious that we don't want those people on our team. But I'm talking more about people that you love, people that have been close to you, people that have served with you. But there's even just a slight sense that you get, a discernment that I don't know that they're fully submitted to my leadership in some of the ways that they respond at given times, or some of the ways they come back at you in a way that doesn't feel like there's respect, that there's honor or something like that. Not that it's all about you, but you know what I mean. So there's this certain level, and so we had a couple of people that were like that everybody expected us to ask. We were very close with them. We love them. They're doing great things in ministry now, so it's nothing like that. But we just felt like there was a sense of, I'm not sure that they're at the deepest level fully submitted to our leadership. They love us and what have you, but that was not something, though they were gifted, though they could have brought great attributes to the team, it wasn't a place that we were willing to take a chance on, we just weren't willing to go there. And I think that has served us well. I think even if someone has a lot of gifting, but they're not fully submitted to your leadership, that's going to go wrong oftentimes somewhere down the road, and going to cause more hurt and pain. And so I would really try to think through that as you're developing your team. You want to look for people that can really get things done. They're willing to work hard and sacrifice. So obviously there's got to be a level of sacrifice if you're moving cities, or you're going to a different location, you're picking up your life and you're going to plant roots somewhere else. There's a certain level of sacrifice, and you want that built into who a person is, not only in that move, but in the way that they operate before Jesus. Also, you want the hard work element. That's a little different. Sacrifice is those moments of sacrifice and givenness to Jesus. Hard work is what gets you through the day after day after day. Like we're gonna work hard. We're gonna be diligent in what God has given us to do. And so, because that's a large part of just life and living. And so that's the type of people that you're looking for, because certainly in the beginning, we're just all kind of in the same boat. We're rowing, and you're wearing all types of different hats, and so you want people that are willing to just kind of throw in and work hard, that will carry weight, because you're feeling the need for more people to carry weight and to be in it with you. And so you're looking for people that can be that way. And the last thing I'll say on that is looking for people that are humble, teachable, and willing to change. And so these are kind of similar to the DNA, but this is maybe going more to the character side of DNA, that they're humble, they're teachable, and they're willing to change. That's just huge attributes of a person. And it's like, okay, we can get through a lot if we're all this way. If we're all humble, teachable, and willing to change, we can work through a lot as a team. And even when adversity hits us, even when there's spiritual warfare, even when things don't go as planned, if we can operate in that, man, we're gonna be doing good. So let me get a little more practical on the forming of a team and talk about roles. So, though at this stage, the launch stage of a church plant, you're all in kind of the same boat together. I mean, you're all doing kind of all things. You do need to think about a few more specialized roles. And particularly this will depend on how you choose to launch. If you're doing more of a hard launch, I mean, you're going to have to think about, okay, I really need someone that can operate in a little more excellence in these roles. If you're doing a soft launch, you can think about it a little differently. Just in life group, the different roles, they're just different. There's a different level of need there. But generally speaking, the roles that I think of are worship leader. You need somebody that can lead worship for the context that you're going to be launching, and that they have the ability to do that, to lead a group of people into the presence of God. And you need someone that can do admin. Our admin person didn't come actually till a year later, but we had others that were competent enough to do admin, to figure things out in the first year, and admin really actually picked up after that, and so it worked out okay. But again, there was some, okay, we know they can do this for this. It might not be their long-term calling, it might not be the joy of their life, but there's a level that we trust their competence to kind of figure it out and do it and handle it with integrity. And so there's worship, admin, someone that can do kids ministry. These are things that earlier on, if you're hoping to draw some families and things, you need to have someone that is good with kids, that at least likes kids, and that also you feel will do a good job of relating with the parents and the interactions with parents on kids. If you're looking to start in a college area, you're going to want people that are able to be effective in reaching college students. For us, God kind of threw a curveball at the end, and because ASU is the reason that we were starting and launching where we were launching, we actually felt like God said all hands on deck at ASU. So instead of kind of having different things, we were all on campus all the time, and it's a 70,000 person campus, so we felt like if we just sent a couple of people over there to get going, they're just going to drown in a sea of people. And so that was huge for us to get a little momentum on campus. But so you're just thinking about certain roles, particularly based on the vision that God's given you. Okay, if we're doing that, we need to have a person that will excel in seeing that happen. With that, I will say this, and I'll expound on it a little bit more later, that we did not give titles early on. So we would have people bottom line things in that, hey, if we come to you and we need to know about young adult ministry or how that's going, or how that you're going to bottom line that, but we're kind of all in these things together. And so we just avoided titles, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But the reason being is to try to just kind of manage expectations. And so, but that's a part of what we did is try to avoid titles while still giving people the responsibility and bottom lining of things. And so so that's part of the other thing that you're thinking on in the area of roles as it comes to developing a team. So once you've got your team together and you want to start meeting together, and you don't want to shortcut this process of coming together and meeting together, because when you get on the ground and you start running, you're running, and people are excited to run. I mean, you've been developing vision for it, so you don't want to shortcut the process of developing team. Now I know everybody's got kind of different time frame of when they're heading out the door, and not everybody has the chance to know everybody on their team for 6 years prior and all those types of things. But as much as you can use the at least the 6 months before launching as a team to really develop camaraderie and develop passion for the calling of God, use it. I think it was probably for us about 6 or 7 months before we left that we started meeting weekly as a team together. On top of that weekly meeting, we had a couple of team retreats where we just got away with one another and worshiped and had fun and cooked meals and prayed for one another, prophesied, and along the way we did a lot of dreaming with God. We read the book by Bill Johnson, Dreaming with God, and we dreamed with one another. And part of that dreaming, though you as the team leader will be kind of leading that vision and kind of be shaping it, you want to bring everybody into that process of dreaming with God, because that gives them a greater level of ownership in it. That we're part of this dreaming, and we didn't do a lot of goals in terms of numbers or time frames, but we had general goals and big dreams that God wanted to accomplish, and then the idea was just to be faithful in the little. Okay, let's take the first step and let's believe God to accomplish these big dreams. But we did that together, and so there was a real sense of buy-in from the team, because we had done those things together. We started researching the city that we were going to, and researching different aspects of the city and the culture and what we could expect. We did team trainings and team buildings. We did personality tests and strengths finders, and different things like that are just fun. But also you're getting to know one another, and you're having meaningful conversations, and you're just developing a depth of relationship. It was a really sweet season for us, and so again, I would just encourage you not to shortcut that season, but to really soak up that season, for you getting to really bond together with your team, and then to bond with one another. And on a side note, one of the things that we enjoyed when it came time to actually launching was we came out here a couple of months before our team started to trickle in, and that was intentional. We wanted to get settled in, we had to find the place that we were going to live. We wanted to get a lay of the land, so we kind of had our bearings, and we also wanted to then be able to have people come when our team came. When our team came, that we would be able to host them while they look for a place. We'd be able to kind of strategize with them about good places to live, or where's a good neighborhood, and to really help them in that transition process. While I was here, I was meeting with different church leaders and ministry leaders on campus, and just introducing myself and asking them about what God was doing, and saying that we're excited to come alongside them and seeing the kingdom come. So there's things we were doing in that time as well. But I think it was very beneficial. If you're able to do that, that's something we really enjoyed. So as you launch, you are now kind of doing everything together. It's one of the beautiful aspects of team, is that, you're in it together. Like, no doubt. Like, because you're doing something that's challenging. It's kind of like that foxhole concept. Man, you're in the foxhole, and you're on a campus of 70,000 people, and you're like, okay, here we are, and it's only us, but let's go for it, and let's just start reaching out. Let's start discipling. Let's see who the people of peace God's going to give us, and you're doing it. We had a little thing that God had spoken to us of one more, and so we had different goals that we kind of individually waited on the Lord before, in terms of how many spiritual conversations we would initiate each day, and then the word came to do one more, and so we all kind of added, like, hey, when we feel like we're done, or when we've reached the number that we felt like God had spoken to us, that we would do one more. It's really cool. We had so many testimonies from the one more, probably more than the combined others, but it was just, man, we're in this together, and it's emotionally exhausting, doing that every day. But we're having team meetings in the evenings, because some people are working, some spouses are working, and so team meetings are in the evening. We're meeting regularly. We're literally in this thing together. It's like, okay, we've sold our houses, we moved here, we're all in. And so it's just this beautiful element of team, of living life together, that we don't get to do that often in the pace of our Western world. Our life on life discipleship is more, okay, we're committing to meet weekly or bi-weekly, and in this it was like, man, we're seeing each other every day, and we're just praying, and we're walking this out, and we're worshiping and believing God together. And so there's something really beautiful about that season of launching a team, and you're beginning to gather people, and you're having those initial roles that you are playing. And so it's a beautiful season. There's different challenges in that season, particularly if you're having a hard time gathering people. But it's a beautiful season of your team putting all of the vision, all of the dreaming, all of the expectations. Okay, we're putting this into practice now. And so you eventually, though, as you begin to grow, you will need to begin to scale your team. Now, I don't know if there's a particular number for this. Drew probably would know a number for this. When you begin to transition from team to staff. And so, I kind of talked about it as kind of all in the same boat, and we're just kind of doing everything together, and you transition to getting into some different boats. Like, okay, this is really what you're going to be responsible for, and what you're going to be responsible for. And as you grow as a church over time, there's more and more boats, which is really beneficial, because you want people to be in their sweet spot. People want to be in their sweet spot. You want them ultimately to be in their sweet spot, because that's where they're going to be the most effective. But in the church planting phase, your sweet spot may be 10% of what you do, and that's okay. I mean, particularly if we had a very young team, and so in their 20s, we're serving, we're learning about our gifting, we're all these types of things, and so that's okay. But ultimately, and we're beginning to be able to really do that more and more now, is getting people into their sweet spots. Instead of 10%, it's gone up to 30%, or now 50%, or 75%, and some people are getting into, okay, I'm fully in my sweet spot. So that's good, but we're still not fully there in the stage of transitioning from team to staff initially, but you're beginning to have a few different boats that people are beginning to lead and to manage. And so at this point, it is really going from team to staff, and for us that was I don't know, probably around the 150 mark, where we're really trying to, like, okay, we're kind of becoming a little church here, and so how do we've got to change up some things. And so you, as I said earlier, will always need people that have the character, the DNA, they have humility, and those are the most important. But at the same time, it takes more than that to lead larger groups of people, to have the capacity and the excellence and the competence to lead people. You have to add to the heart values and the DNA and the faithfulness certain skills and competencies, and so you begin realizing the need for that. And sometimes, and I think certainly early on, it was us realizing that as we grew. And so some of that's intuitive. Again, there's probably a number that you can kind of help to frame it, but some of it's intuitive, like, okay, we really feel that there's some changes needed in terms of this person was great in the launch phase, but we really need to think about getting someone else to operate in that role that can really continue to lead the church well and into the future. And so that's just going to be a requirement as you go as a church. The team will change and morph because of the need to grow and scale in competence and excellence. So, for example, a person that can do a great job of leading worship in life group is not necessarily going to excel in leading worship for 150 people. It's a different animal. Doesn't mean that they don't have the heart of worship or the DNA. It just means that there's not the skill set or the leadership to draw in a worship team and attract people and be able to establish community, or to be able to have the stage presence to really lead people into the presence of God. And so there's just very practical things that you have to make decisions on, and as you make those decisions, that's going to require some hard conversations. And so I want to take a minute here to talk about it, because those are very difficult conversations, and it's something that you'll need to get very good at, because it's not just going to happen once. It's not just going from launch to, okay, we're a little fledgling church now, but it may happen again. Like, okay, we're not just a fledgling church, but we're actually a pretty solid church, to, like, wow, we're a very established church. And so there might be different iterations of this, and ultimately you don't want to just respond intuitively to, like, oh goodness, I think it's time. You actually want to be more proactive in looking ahead. One of the great pieces of advice we got was always, as a church, don't think about what it takes to lead a church in terms of, and this isn't just personnel, but this is in excellence of the way you do different things or manage different things. Don't think of just like, okay, we're a 150 person church. What do we need to do as a 150 person church? You actually always want to be at the next stage. Like, no, be thinking about, okay, if we're a 300 person church, what do we need to be doing? And when you're a 300 person church, okay, we're a 500 person church. So as a 500 person church, what do we need to be doing? What are the expectations as people come in terms of what they would experience? Because if you're 150, you're not wanting to think about 150 because you want to grow from there. And so you've got to think about the next stage and the next stage and so on and so forth. And so that's just a great way to picture it. But getting back to those conversations that are difficult, you want to grow in your ability to have those, because you will be having those, and you will be having multiple of those types of conversations. And so obviously you want to be able to navigate that with a great deal of grace for those that you're talking to, because you're talking to people that are very faithful. Mostly, if there's sin or something else, that's actually an easier conversation of like, hey, you can't be doing this anymore. It's the harder conversation of those that have been very faithful, they're very close to you, that have laid their life down. And so the thing that we've learned in this is to do a really good job of being prayerful about it, and in that act of being prayerful about it is getting words from the Lord. Is that we are taking time to really say, God, what do you have for this person? And so in that, our goal is to redirect them into their greatest area of contribution. Who are they? What has God made them for? And how will perhaps another role fit that better? And so that's a very something I take very seriously. And here's kind of the heart behind it, because sometimes it's there's certainly an emotional element to it. Like, am I putting the growth of the church above a person? And something about that just doesn't feel right, and it might not feel right to that person. But here's how I think about that. I have the responsibility as the leader and pastor, shepherd of our church, to put people in positions that will best lead the church, cover the church, steward the church. And so if I have the discernment that, okay, I think there's someone else that needs to step into this position for whatever reason, my belief is that it's not just removing that person from the position, it's actually that God has something better for that person. I mean, I think that's the way I think about it, because that's the nature of God. He's not demoting this person. There's actually something else, or some area of development. There's something that God has for them that's best for them. If I'm hearing God and prayerfully considering this, that's my heartfelt belief, and that's what I kind of keep in me and try to communicate to that individual. And so sometimes that is redirecting on another place in the staff. There have been times where we've redirected people not to be on the staff anymore, not because we didn't love them or what have you, but in one particular instance we really felt like and they had already had some idea of this and thought of this themselves, and so that certainly made it a little easier. But in one instance we felt like this guy that had launched the church with us had kind of come through college, D-school, and basically right into planning a church, that God had something for him in the secular work world where he was going to learn and to develop some skills that God really wanted to use. We didn't know if he'd be back on church staff after that or not, but that was kind of the place we directed him, and as we did that, there was some agreement in his spirit. There was certainly some emotions to navigate, but there was also some agreement in his spirit. Let me say this before I go on. I mentioned earlier that we don't give titles early on, and felt like that was pretty significant for us. We had to do some for website purposes, in terms of, you want people checking out your website to know, oh, there is a kids pastor. That's the person that will be kind of leading my kids, or oh, this is the worship pastor. I can identify them, lead pastor, those things. But for the most part, what we were trying to do in not giving titles, though that's very difficult. I mean, people like titles because it kind of gives a sense of identification. It kind of maybe could clarify, like, okay, no, this is who I am. It can be a place of just identity. Like, okay, I know this is what I'm doing. This is what I can communicate. And so there's certainly some difficulty in that, but we were trying to manage expectations. And so in that, we didn't know what their long-term place was going to be. We didn't just do that by not giving titles. We also had those conversations where, okay, hey, this is what you're going to be doing and bottom lining in this launch phase. And so we really see you excelling in this and doing this and feel like you have what it takes to really launch our church. We're going to reevaluate that based on how you're feeling about the role that you've been playing, and based on how I'm feeling about what the needs of the church are, and we'll just kind of navigate that. And so really in every way try to mitigate the emotional hurdles down the road if they do need to change position, by managing expectations up front. And so you want to do your due diligence on that, to not set people up with expectations that it's like, oh my goodness, they kind of have in their mind that for the next 10 years they're going to be the worship leader of this church. And we're a year and a half in, and I'm like, we gotta have a change, And so you want to manage expectations up front. It's just a wise thing to do, and it's in the best interest of your team. And I will say this though, as much as you try to do that, that does not mean that you then avoid all of the hard conversations or the emotional reactions. There's still going to be a process to walk through with grace. So you're not going to be like, hey, I told you that you may not be doing that. What's wrong? You still want to manage that with grace and compassion. With people. And so those are difficult conversations, but those are going to be necessary conversations. And I want to say this particularly for any of you who may be struggling with that concept, because I know I did a little bit. I was like, that feels hard. They've been so faithful. They've served their tails off. Like this is feels wrong. But I want to say this, because I even set it up earlier, like, man, it feels like we're putting the growth of the church above the person. And I kind of explained why I don't think that's true, and that if God gives you as the shepherd of the people the intuition that there needs to be a change, that God has something better for them as well. So I think that's true. But I also think we need to realize that in that statement, growth is the enemy and the person is the good guy, and growth is not the enemy, and neither is the person. They're a good person as well. But growth is not the bad thing. Sometimes I know it kind of spins that way, but none of you are going out to plant a church to have a stale, stagnant, non-growing church. That nobody does that. And so I know sometimes growth and the desire to grow gets some flack, but who does that? I mean, who starts a business and is like, yeah. And so same thing for the kingdom of God. We have desires to reach more people, to influence our community, to see transformation in the society, and that takes growth. And that doesn't mean we're trying to be a mega church. That's certainly not what we're trying to be. That's not our goal, is to have whatever. But we want to grow, is certainly. And here's the thing with growth: stale and stagnant things, they don't grow. There's not a lot of life there. But when there's a place that has life, there's growth. Living things grow. That's just what living things do. And so we want to be alive. And we've got 200 students from another university that drive over a couple times a week, and it's like 35, 40 miles for them. And so we've got a lot of highways here, so it's not quite as extreme as it sounds. But it's like they found something that's alive. So they want to be here, and that's our desire. We want to be alive. We want people to want to be here. And so, anyway, I'm just trying to I don't want us to demonize growth in the sense of like the idea of putting growth over people. First of all, that's not the heart of what we're doing, and it's not bad to have a desire to grow. That's something that God's put in your heart as a church planter, and a primary natural factor in growth occurring is that you have a staff that has the ability, the competence, and the excellence to lead larger and larger groups of people. That's a natural factor that it takes that, not simply a good-hearted people. And so certainly there's moves of God and all those types of things, but naturally speaking, that's what we're looking for. And so as you move into then this season of establishing roles, you're getting more identified titles, people are getting more into their sweet spots, and that didn't happen overnight. I mean, we're still trying to get people into their sweet spots, and there's still people wearing multiple hats, 7.5 years in, 800 people in our church, so that doesn't happen overnight by any means. But as you begin to do that, establishing people in more permanent roles, even though you don't want to promise too much. But what I'm saying is, as you begin to establish, one of the things you want to think about is your own personal strengths and weaknesses. Like, what do you excel at? And what are the places where you really need people coming alongside you? And particularly at higher levels of leadership, those that are going to be really walking side by side with you, executive pastor, associate pastor types.